The following is a presentation of the Pro Wrestling Report. Informative, entertaining, and real since 1998. The following is a presentation of the Pro Wrestling Report, TV and radio. Informative, entertaining, and real since 1998. Don't forget to follow PWR right here on Blog Talk Radio right now. Be reminded of upcoming episodes and never miss Blog Talk Radio's most popular sports show. Follow PWR now. Live from the PWR studios in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, this is the Pro Wrestling Report Post Show on Blog Talk Radio with your host, Damian Nelson.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report. We're here live on Blog Talk Radio. It is WWE Night of Champions 2012, the post show. Damian Nelson coming to you here on a night where we saw two championships change hands and one championship matchup end in controversy. I want to thank you for joining us wherever you are all over the world, and want to also invite you to join us here live in the chat room on Blog Talk Radio and be a part of the broadcast. Conversation goes all night long. Several of you in there right now talking about the controversial end to the WWE Night of Champions pay-per-view. But before we get to that ending, there was a lot that happened tonight in Boston on this pay-per-view Night of Champions. As I said, two championships changing hands, the first of which being the Tag Team Championships and the Divas Championship also changing hands. And you'd probably be surprised by who ultimately walked out of the building with the Divas Championship. David Hero, the start of this pay-per-view was on a bit of a somber yet celebratory tone as we got an King Lawler. And as you well know, Jerry the King Lawler suffered a heart attack on WWE Raw Monday night and was not able to be a part of the broadcast tonight. After a recap of that from Michael Cole, we find out officially from WWE that replacing Jerry Lawler is none other than the Wrestling God, JBL. And David, JBL did not take a thing away from this pay-per-view. As a matter of fact, he added a tremendous amount to it.
He absolutely did. And what was great about it is JBL brought his own in-ring experience to the table to talk about his battles, his wars, his fights. And for as good as Jerry the King Lawler is, it was refreshing, it was exciting, it was new to have somebody with just a different flavor, a different attitude, different tone sitting next to Michael Cole. It gave the pay-per-view a new, crisp feel to it, and I thoroughly enjoyed the commentary of Justin Bradshaw Layfield.
That would be John Bradshaw Layfield, a Wrestling God, the longest-reigning champion in SmackDown.
No. He used to be called Justin Hawk, if you remember when he first started.
There's your subtle dig. All right, well, I guess it's a little early in the show for that, but you got it in anyways.
I'm a wrestling historian.
They did such a great job, though, in addressing the Jerry Lawler situation, a solid few minutes at the beginning of the program, because it's a tricky situation to have to replace him, but they had no choice but to replace him. I think they handled this flawlessly.
You know what? They could have gone in a couple different directions. They could have brought Booker T back out there. They could have brought Mick Foley in. John Bradshaw Layfield brought a new dynamic, and I could see them running with him there for a little while.
All right, well, we'll see what happens in JBL, the presumed replacement for Lawler for at least the next few weeks. Let's get to the matchups, David Hero. And the first one we're going to talk about, it happened on the pre-show, actually. It was a battle royal to determine the competitor who would challenge the United States champion, Antonio Cesaro, later on in the evening. A lot of people involved in this matchup, including the primetime players, Drew McIntyre, a not very often seen as of late Ted DiBiase.
Let's just skip all that. Let's just call it what it was. The last two guys in that battle royal were two from Team Super Friends, Lord Tensai and Zack Ryder. That's what the people really want to know, who were the final two. And yes, They wear
no,
the.
they don't. They want to know what happened in the matchup. They want to know that Ted DiBiase came back. They want to know that Santino Marella had a good showing in that matchup. Was one of the final four, but went for a pinfall victory. They want to know that Tensai.
He had a tremendous showing
as well, but ultimately it would be Zack Ryder eliminating Tensai and winning that matchup to get the shot at Antonio Cesaro's United States Championship later on in the evening. The first matchup on the actual pay-per-view, though, was a fatal four-way for the Intercontinental Championship. This match made just Friday night on SmackDown. Miz defending against three competitors, Rey Mysterio, Sin Cara, and Cody Rhodes. Now, we saw a couple of interesting things. If you really think
about it, it's against 2.5 competitors.
Who's the half, Rey or Sin?
Well, probably Sin Cara. I mean, Rey's a little bit taller.
The interesting thing in this matchup that happened first was the face-off between Sin Cara and Rey Mysterio. A lot of people have been talking about the probability of that match happening somewhere down the road. I was a little surprised at how much the fans didn't care about that face-off, and they cared about Rey Mysterio. Not as surprised about how little they cared about Sin Cara. Throughout this matchup, the fans in Boston were firmly behind Cody Rhodes and The Miz. I mean, at one point there was a chant for each of them, let's go Cody, let's go Miz, or Miz is awesome, which was a bit surprising because the clear fan favorites in this matchup were Rey Mysterio and Sin Cara. Now, the match would end...
But that's the East Coast bias.
You're going to take a whole coast of people and say that they have a bias against faces.
No, they have a bias against guys that wear wrestling masks.
But they did not realize that at the end of that matchup, The Miz would be wearing a wrestling mask as Sin Cara attempted to put a mask on Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes gets out of it. Somehow the mask gets on The Miz. The Miz hits the skull-crushing finale on Cody Rhodes. 1, 2, 3. The Miz retains the Intercontinental Championship.
Interesting about that is the last, 3-4 months, Sin Cara comes out in red gear, red masks, red the whole thing. Now tonight he goes back to the old stuff. All those collective groans in the audience of all the parents that bought the red hood. Now their kids are, want the old one with the blue and the white.
Yeah. Well, going
and that Rey Mysterio Sin Cara little spot fest they had was terrible. That's why the fans weren't into it, because it wasn't the flips and the jumps, and it wasn't high energy. It wasn't high electricity. It wasn't something new or different. It seemed like they were just going in slow motion.
At points during this matchup, it did indeed feel that way. Things were paced a little bit slower than I would have expected, but coming out of it, it seems like we've got a solid situation that has developed between Cody Rhodes and The Miz going forward to the Intercontinental Championship. It makes me feel great because that means two endorsed talents are being highlighted and showcased.
Right, but there can only be one. But there can be only one winner. That's the problem.
Well, I saw a tweet from you earlier that said it takes two to tango, and matches between those two.
It takes two to have a great match, but there can only be one winner.
I don't need a belt around my endorsed talents to show that they're great. Being featured in the matchups that they're featured in is all I need, because at the end of the day, everybody wins.
When Cody was on his back, you were fine with that.
When Cody lost the matchup, yes, I was fine with that, because the endorsed Miz was defeating Cody for the long-term benefit of the company. Endorsed talents do business. Your super friends are talking about themselves. And why are you talking so much about you tonight? This is about WWE Night.
I haven't talked about me at all. I'm just saying
the results of the broadcast.
I'm looking forward to a Cody versus Miz program. I think it will be good TV. I think it will be some good wrestling. And I'm looking forward to seeing which guy is going to come out of that in a better spot.
Do you see The Miz? You talked about this on Be the Booker. Do you see The Miz taking that babyface role as you thought maybe he might do?
Well, I thought so, but then tonight he comes out and kind of cuts a heelish bad guy promo. So It's kind of hard to say which route they're going to go in.
Yep.
I think they're feeling out the crowd to see who they're going to gravitate towards.
Mm-hmm. And if that was the case tonight, I'm not sure they learned anything, because it seemed like they were fine with either Cody or The Miz winning.
Are you saying that the Boston crowd wasn't very smart?
No, actually, what I just said was I don't think that they identified who they would rather
you
get
said
behind.
they didn't learn anything.
I said
Be very careful.
I said WWE didn't learn anything.
Nice job, Spin Doctor.
A nice try, Spin Doctor. Going to the next matchup, it was a tag team championship matchup against the newest odd couple in WWE, Kane and Daniel Bryan. This story was all about the tag team of Kane and Daniel Bryan, and, at the end of the night, we've got brand new WWE Tag Team Champions, Kane and Daniel Bryan and David Hero. Everything before it, during it, and after it was simply tremendous.
The fans got what they wanted. They want to cheer for those two guys. They want to see those two together as a tag team. And you know what? They're doing it. It was creative. It was a well-done match. The finishes tonight, I was impressed with. They thought outside the box. People weren't just getting hit with their finishers. They were building to get to where they had to go. And, hats off to Kofi and R-Truth. I mean, they've been the longest reigning transitional tag team champions I can think of in a long time, because they just put the belts on them because they had nowhere else to go with it. And, for Daniel Bryan Danielson and Kane to come out there and just take care of business and get 15,000 people behind them, great job. Good job. And once again, Daniel Bryan showing what kind of a talent he is. And he is doing exceptionally well.
There is a question, though, coming out of this matchup, and that is actually who are the tag team champions, because Daniel Bryan is saying, I am the tag team champions. Kane is saying, I am the tag team champions. Clever.
Yeah.
Very clever.
Well, maybe, but for me it's annoying because, come on. It reminds me of when Austin and Dude Love were the tag team champions and they were fighting over who were the tag team champions, or the time when Austin and Shawn Michaels had the tag belts. It's like, okay, it was funny that Kane said he's going to Disneyland. That was funny. But, let's not overdo it too much to the point where the funny ha-ha becomes, brutal.
Well, it got better, in my opinion, because Kane would then announce, after splashing AJ Daniel Bryan with Gatorade, that he's going to Disneyland. Hilarious. Just tremendous. Because next, here's what I want to see. The footage. Show me the tape. Show me the film of Kane at Disneyland with all those little kids and the big red monster. Gold. Absolute gold right there.
No, admit it. You want to see Kane walking down the OBT.
Disneyland is in Anaheim, California. Disney World is in Orlando, Florida.
Well, what do you think I said?
You said the OBT is in Orlando, where Disney World is. However, you make a great point. If Kane walked into that Church's Chicken on OBT, that would be a comedy. Especially if he bought something outside before he walked in. But be that as it may, a great matchup. This was not a great wrestling match, but this was entertainment, and this was a great break in the show for this team of Kane and Daniel Bryan. And as you selected on PWRB, the Booker, this past Friday night, Kane and Daniel Bryan are indeed the new WWE Tag Team Champions.
on Be the Booker this week.
You got it right for once. I guess so. Since you picked, as you booked it, the same things that WWE ultimately ended up doing, I guess that means that they were predictions and not for entertainment purposes only.
No. It was entertainment purposes only. It just, they watched the show on Friday and made adjustments to their show this morning.
Clearly. The next matchup, David, was that matchup for the United States Championship. Antonio Cesaro versus Zack Ryder. Antonio Cesaro defending against Zack Ryder. Decent matchup, and it's a bit of a showcase for Cesaro, a match that I think he needed against the fan favorite in Zack Ryder, but a match that saw Cesaro actually show how good he is against, as I said, an opponent that the fans like.
I think it was one of the more solid matches of the entire pay-per-view. I think Zack Ryder elevated his game. I thought he did a fantastic job. Cesaro is solid. I mean, he's a hell of a worker. And you know what I think else made this match good was having JBL on commentary. because JBL was that guy. He was that badass. He was the punch and kick and the clothesline from hell and everything else, and he can relate to the character of Cesaro, and he can relate to not appreciating a character such as Zack Ryder.
Well, Cesaro retains that United States Championship. You know, here's the thing about Antonio there. Great wrestler, great performer. It doesn't match. I don't understand what his music's all about.
Well, I don't know. You know what I was most impressed with was the timing and the delivery and where Oksana was supposed to be.
Yeah.
I mean, when he's going for submissions and she is laying on the ring apron, brilliant. Yep. You know, it was just, she obviously gets it. She understands. She's not going to be an in-ring performer from what I've heard, but at least she knows, and this is going to sound completely sexist, but it's not how it's meant to be. She knows her spot. She knows her spot. She knows where she's supposed to be at ringside, is what I mean, you know? And I'm sure some jabroni out there is going to take it the wrong way. But
No, let's clarify. You just said in reference to Oksana, she knows her spot. Fact or fiction?
Yes.
That's what you just said.
I didn't say that.
Okay,
but
thank you.
Her spot around the ring, and she knows where she needs to be. Wow, you're that guy.
The next match was the first of what would be many great wrestling matchups. As a matter of fact, 3 of the next 4 matchups were just absolutely fantastic. And it would be Dolph Ziggler versus Randy Orton. Dolph Ziggler, of course, the holder of the Money in the Bank briefcase. Speculation that he may cash in tonight. However, we haven't gotten to that matchup, so we'll tell you that when we get to the World Heavyweight Championship match. But Randy Orton defeats Dolph Ziggler, and David, a lot of people, including myself, expected this to be a tremendous matchup. This match delivered, but what it delivered was some more deliberate pacing than we're used to with Dolph Ziggler, which I think allowed the fans to see Dolph Ziggler's talents a little more clearer. The headlock, it had to be one of the longest headlock series I've seen in a long time in a wrestling matchup. Then the fist fight scenario that they did as well. And then Randy Orton with that big DDT on the floor from the guard. And that ultimately saw Randy Orton get the RKO again out of nowhere and defeat Dolph Ziggler.
You know, it was a fantastic match. It told a great story. The guys are phenomenal athletes and tremendous workers. But, my good God, what does Dolph Ziggler have to do to win a match, a singles match, a high-profile singles match against a guy the caliber of a Randy Orton, a upper top card guy? I mean, come on. You know, eventually Dolph Ziggler is going to cash in that briefcase, and he may become the next World Heavyweight Champion. But him getting there has been such an uneventful deal. It's kind of hard to take him serious as the world champion when he doesn't beat anybody, and then he cashes it in, and then he beats a weekend champion.
You're looking ahead, which I don't fault you for, but I challenge you on the point you just made, because Dolph Ziggler is, whether he wins or loses, just absolutely tremendous. I don't think that it's hurting him to lose these matchups. Now, I think it would have helped him, definitely, as you said, to defeat Randy Orton tonight, especially if he were to have cashed in that Money in the Bank briefcase. But I don't think it's hurting him. I will agree it's probably not helping him, but the fans were behind Ziggler tonight, and they have been for quite a while, including what we saw on Twitter, at PWR Show on Twitter, a lot of people wanting Dolph Ziggler to win this matchup. And I really thought, David Hero, for a time there, that he would lose after getting that DDT on the floor from Randy Orton, but then maybe show up later and cash in that Money in the Bank briefcase. But he did not get immediately pinned after that DDT on the floor. Randy Orton, I don't know what his game was tonight, but he had some choice words for somebody at ringside, and he forgot a few fingers when he was going for the RKO the first time, and ended up flipping off the crowd, which he then subsequently apologized for on Twitter.
You know what? But that right there is Randy Orton's problem. That's why he gets stuck in neutral so often with this company. I mean, he already has 2 strikes against him. Then he does stuff like that. And if you look at the bigger picture, where you have the pink ring rope around the ring, it's, rise above cancer. It's the night of champions, and then you have one of their top stars out there acting like a fool. Kind of brings the company back a few notches from what they're trying to be perceived as.
I won't disagree with you there. Good matchup, solid matchup between these two. Was it what you expected, though, David Hero?
Absolutely. It was exactly what I expected and more. I mean, I knew that those two guys were going to, have a fantastic match, and they did. These two have yet to disappoint. But at the end of the day, the Titanic can only take on so many icebergs until it eventually sinks. And if they're not careful with Dolph Ziggler, he could be the next Titanic.
Interesting. Well, he's got a few months left. I think about 4 or 5, 6 months left between until he can cash in, or that he can cash in that Money in the Bank briefcase. And they haven't talked much about it lately. At least Dolph hasn't. We haven't seen any fake cash-ins. So that could be telling of the future, the immediate future, as it pertains to the Hell in a Cell briefcase. I want to welcome you, those of you who are just tuning in right now. This is the Pro Wrestling Report. We're live here on Blog Talk Radio talking about WWE Night of Champions, a night that saw brand new tag team champions crowned in Kane and Daniel Bryan. Also saw the return of John Bradshaw to the commentary booth in WWE, and also saw a brand new Divas champion, Damian Nelson, along with David Hero. I want to welcome all of you who are joining us in the chat room here on Blog Talk Radio, and those of you who are following us on Twitter, at PWR Show on Twitter. Just got an interesting tweet, because on Twitter, David Hero, I'm sure you've seen as well, a lot of people upset about the way the pay-per-view ended, which we'll get to in a minute, but one person saying, and this is at DudeLoveFan94, if you didn't enjoy WWE Night of Champions, please stop watching WWE, as that was one of the most complete pay-per-views in a long time. Would you agree or disagree with the utilization of that word, complete?
It was complete. It was well done from the first minute. Hey, listen, they got a great match out of Ryder and Antonio Cesaro.
Yep.
That right there shows you. Ryder could have gone out there and just phoned it in because he hasn't been used on TV. He's kind of the doghouse, and he did. He went out there and he worked a hell of a match. Every match was solid, even the Divas. There's not much you can do with Layla and Eve because, the Divas aren't what they used to be. But even those two had a pretty solid match. So I was very pleased. I thought it was one of the few pay-per-views that I was happy that I spent the money on.
And that is the next match to discuss.
And Damien, here's and we didn't even get the full, how can you say it, use out of the main event that we could have got. And I'll save that for when we talk about it.
Yeah, I like that. The Divas matchup, at least going into the night, was going to be Layla versus Caitlyn. And David, as we discussed and as you mentioned on Be the Booker, Caitlyn would ultimately be replaced after getting, I guess she got a little bit of the Nancy Kerrigan, Tanya Harding treatment backstage. Announced as her replacement by Booker T. Eve.
What a terrible job she did. Why wasn't she wincing in pain, rolling around in pain? I did not believe that she got knocked, down from behind and someone, clubbed out her ankle.
I just don't understand why she wasn't asking why her. Why her?
That, honest to God, I would have rather have had that. That would have been fantastic. That would have at least shown a little bit of emotion. But if that's the best that Caitlyn has, they might as well just send her back to NXT right now. She's not ready.
Tremendous. Well, Eve is the new Divas champion, ladies and gentlemen, and she did defeat Layla tonight. And obviously, the end of this is not there, because you've got to build on that story between who attacked Caitlyn backstage, which was so blaringly obvious. Now, this wasn't a bad match; it was decent, but there was not a lot of interest Boston for this particular matchup.
Who do you think attacked her?
Well, it probably had something to do with Eve. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing that out there.
I don't think so, because Eve wears heels, and I'm sure Caitlyn would have heard the heels sneaking up behind her and would have turned around.
Nice. Well, possibly Detective Hero.
I'm just saying. Come on, Hey, they have got to get a detective. They got to bring somebody out. You know who was missing tonight?
Who
There
did?
was no Damian Sandow. There was no Ryback. Those two guys have been kind of staples, at least for appearance points.
Yeah. Well, people were missing Sandow. Ryback, probably not so much. Next matchup was for the World Heavyweight Championship. Sheamus defending against Alberto Del Rio. Alberto Del Rio had successfully lobbied the Bro Kick ban to get it prohibited in this matchup. However, Booker T would announce before the match would start that he has conducted his review and that the Bro Kick has been reinstated. At that moment, you got to believe that it would be Sheamus's night, but I don't know if you could have expected the amazing professional wrestling contest we got between Sheamus and Alberto Del Rio. Yes, it was the umpteenth time they've wrestled each other in a pay-per-view, and yes, even I was not looking forward to this matchup, but as a wrestling fan, I was pleasantly surprised by the story they told and the action they delivered in that ring tonight.
Well, this match has got to be done. It's got to be finished. They've had at least, it seems like the last 6 months that this match has been on pay-per-view. And you know what? Sheamus and Del Rio have yet to truly disappoint. Those two guys can go. Sheamus is far better than people say that, have thought that he is. Del Rio is a technician. And these two guys, it was believable. They were both beating each other up. And it's a shame because, I think Del Rio is talented. He's got a great gimmick. He's got a fantastic look. He has the swagger of a world champion. Obviously, that's not the direction they're going in. But yeah, Sheamus and Del Rio, that might be one of the top 3 matches tonight.
Absolutely, I would agree with that. There would be no cash-in, though. Sheamus left vulnerable after ADR focuses on...
Very vulnerable. When they kept working on the arm of Sheamus, I was like, oh, this has got to be the night that Dolph Ziggler cashes in. It would have made all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
And they didn't, which is a huge question mark as to where are they going with this.
What are you doing with your microphone over there? What's all this noise?
I was going to ask you the same thing. It's like, you got an Android or something? Dude, I don't
iPhone
play
5.
with my
I got it a couple days ago.
Uh-huh.
Surprisingly similar to the iPhone 4. Anyways, the next matchup would be the main event for the WWE Championship, CM Punk versus John Cena. CM Punk defending against John Cena in John Cena's hometown of Boston. That point being made because let's not forget the great match these two had in Chicago at Money in the Bank just last year when the Summer of Punk kicked off. Tonight, David Hero, these two men delivered a tremendous wrestling match with an amazing story and so many attitude adjustments and go-to-sleeps, even a rock bottom. Both men taking their game to the sky off the top rope with maneuvers there. But it would ultimately be a suplex off the top rope by John Cena on CM Punk that would lead to the pinfall victory.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't...
The pinfall victory was not for one man. It was for both John Cena and CM Punk, as both of their shoulders were on the canvas when the ref made the count. But the first person whose music played was the most obvious person who was in control, I guess, for the pinfall. That being John Cena. Cena's music plays. He celebrates. He has the WWE Championship belt. The referee attempting to get his attention. He finally does, takes the belt, and gently takes it over to a waiting CM Punk in the corner. Hands it to CM Punk and declares the match a draw. This was pure brilliance, David Hero, in my opinion.
Well, you know what? We could sit here for the next hour, and we could not give that match justice as to how good it was, how the story was being told, and so on and so forth. But that finish was the only finish that could work in the situation that they were in. They couldn't take the chance of CM Punk losing the belt to John Cena, and John Cena being booed loudly in his hometown. Right?
Exactly.
So with that being said, they couldn't then take the chance, and this is going to sound like that one part from The Princess Bride when the guy's trying to give him the poison drink, where CM Punk retains the title and is wildly cheered with Brock Lesnar's mouthpiece, Paul Heyman, in Boston wearing the New York Yankees pinstripes shorts.
Yeah.
Ring gear. They had to do it this way. I was thinking, boy, if this match would have started at 9 o'clock, I could see it being a 1-hour draw. But when it didn't, I'm like, okay, how are they going to get there where both guys can win and both guys are going to lose? And they found a way. They made it work. Yes, the fans popped a little bit when John Cena won and he, grabbed the belt, walked around, and then the crowd booed a little bit, and then they popped when Punk got the belt back and booed. It was perfect. The perfect storm going into Atlanta for Hell in a Cell with these two guys in another match. For those of you that said they didn't want to see another John Cena CM Punk match, these are the two best guys to put in the main event right now because they both get it. They're both going to do business together. They may not like each other personally, but professionally, they know that's where the money lies.
Well put. Very well put. And they did, as you said, what they needed to do in this matchup. And what a better way to finish this, at least for now, than at Hell in a Cell, where matches should end or stories should come to some type of end next month in Atlanta.
Here's the funny thing. If this was a TNA pay-per-view and they did a finish like that in the main event, the world would stop. Oh, yes, absolutely.
Because, we hate TNA.
But here's the difference. TNA runs the same building just about every month for their pay-per-views. So there is no pro Cena or pro Punk, fandom or whatnot.
Yeah.
WWE obviously thought outside the box and said, hey, we cannot have our golden goose booed loudly in his hometown after he just wins the championship. Mm-hmm. They did a great job.
Yep. Well, let's go over the pay-per-view again. The Miz retains the Intercontinental Championship. Kane and Daniel Bryan are the new tag team champions. Antonio Cesaro retains the United States Championship over the man who won the Battle Royal in the pre-show, Zack Ryder. Randy Orton defeats Dolph Ziggler. Eve is the new Divas champion after Kaitlyn's taken out in the back. As she defeats Layla, taking that Divas championship. Sheamus retains his World Heavyweight Championship. And the main event matchup between John Cena and CM Punk ends in a draw. I asked you on Twitter what you thought of this particular pay-per-view, whether you were going to give it a passing or fail. 7% gave it a passing grade. You, the audience, 23% gives it a failing grade. So as a result, we'd have to consider this pay-per-view based on what you've told us a pass. Also, the PWR.
I would love to see the IQ of the person that said that this pay-per-view failed.
Well,
they didn't watch it. They didn't watch it.
Or their stream went down.
Yeah, there's no way you could watch that entire pay-per-view, and when it's all said and done, after almost 3 hours, say, oh yeah, this thing sucked.
Yeah.
Impossible.
There was some great wrestling tonight. Great wrestling on this pay-per-view tonight. And the PWR draft results from tonight, David Hero, congratulations on attaining 175 points. However, you got screwed out of points in the end because you could not achieve win points for either Punk or Cena as the match was declared a draw.
Oh, no. The guy that leaves with the belt is still the winner. He retained. He retained the title.
Is there a winner or a loser in a draw?
There is a retainment clause in all fantasy wrestling sports. He retained the championship.
Did not win or lose, nor did he defend the championship successfully.
He defended it if he retained
He did not. The match was a draw. It never happened.
You know what? I believe
never happened.
Look
up the definition of a draw. And yeah, the Kaz is back on primetime this Thursday. Wait till you see what he's up to lately. He's been busy over in Studio B.
Bro, Cephas, if you don't lose, that means you defend. And Punk didn't lose, which means
What's the definition of a draw? What's the definition of a draw? It didn't happen.
The time limit has expired.
No, that's a time. No, that's completely different, and you know it. Look, you got 15 points more than me. You're just every month you see this gap closing. I scored 160 points. I want to thank all the endorsed talents that did that.
I'm glad your gap is closing. Does that mean the show's almost over?
Overall score, 1265 for the Super Friends, 1175 for the Nelson family. We'll have more conversation about the goings-on of Night of Champions tomorrow night on The Meltdown, and then, of course, this Saturday night on primetime television. So, I want to thank all of you for joining us and being a part of this show today. The conversation continues in the chat room and on Twitter at PWR Show on Twitter.
Hey, Damien.
David.
Check this out.
You know, here's the thing about him, ladies and gentlemen. He is amazingly unprofessional. And you know what, quite frankly, this week on primetime, Saturday night, wait till you see who I've invited to replace David Hero. We'll see you then, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Pro Wrestling Report live on Blog Talk Radio.
Don't forget to follow PWR right here on Blog Talk Radio right now. Be reminded of upcoming episodes and never miss Blog Talk Radio's most popular sports show. Follow PWR now.